Do we?
Thank you for joining us. This edition of yet another Garden America podcast. I'm Bryan Main. John Bagnasco. Hey, John's with us this time. And, of course, Tiger Palafox. Today we're going to be talking about citrus. We had a brief discussion earlier today on our regular radio show with Lance Walheim. We did delve into citrus. And a very popular topic. We thought we would talk about it again because when it comes to citrus, if you listen to the show, there's a lot going on. So I want to give you some tips, some ideas, and maybe some helpful hints on growing citrus, or maybe some interesting tidbits of information that you can certainly use in growing citrus. So I'm going to start with you, Tiger, in terms of citrus. Are you a citrus guy? Do you have citrus? Do you like citrus? And if so, why? If not, why not?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I love citrus, and I like that I live in San Diego where they'll grow easily. So in my own home, I've got a lime, I've got an orange, I've got a lemon, and so they grow well for me, and I have them all the time to be able to have fruit off of because we use them, right? And I feel for people that don't live in climates that have that luxury to just be able to go outside and pick a lime or lemon.
Like it's a big deal once a year to be able to do that,
right?
For them,
exactly. But it's funny because we had Court Sinis, who wrote the book on the Meyer lemon. We just recently had Lance Walheim, who's a citrus expert, and part of the reasons why they were so interested in them is because they grew up with them, and that's kind of me. I grew up with the citrus. But I definitely don't take it for granted. I love that I grew up with them, and I love what they provide because I love myself a good lime and a good lemon. And, it's nice to be able to have a tree that goes out there. It's funny because my wife will say, hey, will you go pick up some lemons at the grocery store? I'm like, go in the backyard.
She doesn't realize what you're growing?
We have a lemon tree in the backyard. I'm like, yes, just go in the backyard.
I'm gonna guess that John's not really a citrus guy, are you?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't hear you. You talk about roses. You talk about a lot of different varieties of what you grow. I don't often hear you talk about citrus.
Well, I used to grow a lot of citrus. Used to grow a lot of fruit trees, and we'll also have citrus at my new house. I just ran out of room where I was.
Okay.
But yeah, I like citrus.
What
a
is
lot.
your favorite citrus? What do you like?
Probably tangerines.
Tangerines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mandarin oranges.
Right.
But good oranges are also nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like good orange. And what would you use? Well, I say, what would you use a lime for?
I wanted to mention, though, that, Tiger's talking about growing up with citrus. And if you come from back east out to California for the first time.
Are you blown away?
You're shocked. You know what you're shocked to see? Citrus laying on the ground. It's like the thought is like, why would people not pick those? Why are they leaving them on the ground? Because they're so valuable. It's something you don't see. But those people would, if you were from Ohio or Michigan, you might see apples laying on the ground.
They don't really,
So what do you use limes for, Tiger? We know there's a lot of uses, but I think you think of a lemon, you think, okay, that's more kind of mainstream.
Right.
A lime, maybe in a Corona.
Yeah.
Maybe
key
a
lime
margarita.
pie.
What's that?
Key lime pie.
Key lime pie.
Which is the key lime, which is also known as the Mexican lime.
Also known as the bartender's lime.
Also, quite a few names on it. But I really like fish. And so I like lime for fish, and I like lime because of a lot of Mexican dishes like carnitas.
Sure.
Which is the shredded pork. You put lime on that. It's delicious as well. So a good flavorful lime. And, it's funny that you mentioned key lime, Mexican lime, bartender's lime. It's a small lime the size of a quarter. You get them and they'll look yellow a lot of times, not green.
Well, remember what we learned today from Lance Walheim, that when a lime is ripe, it's yellow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even those Bears limes in the grocery store, they're pre-ripe. They're not.
Right.
They actually turn yellow when they are ripe.
Right. And the only reason they pick them when they're green is so you can tell the difference between a lime and a lemon.
Yeah. But that's really confusing to people. Like, why is this lemon in the lime or the lime in the lemon?
Yeah.
No, it's actually a lime. It's yellow. And you say
You
that's
put the
when
lime in the coconut, don't you?
right, Harry Nielsen, absolutely.
But I was gonna say about the Mexican lime is that it's super flavorful. It's kind of sweet. It has
like
a little
that,
bit of
little
sour,
sweetness.
but the flavor stands out a lot
How about
more
limeade?
than the Bear's lime.
Make a limeade. You could.
Limeade,
Limeade,
lemonade.
sure.
Yum.
Have a limeade stand instead of a lemonade stand.
Limoncello.
Limoncello. I've still got a nice big bottle yesterday
Nice.
down at Vaughn's. Good stuff.
That's what you can do with lemons is make your own limoncello.
Yeah, but I've seen the process that it takes. It takes a while, and I think a lot goes into it. Now, I'm sure Kathy, our friend Kathy's made limoncello probably numerous times in her life. It just seems to me like there's a big process to get what you have to get out of it.
I don't know if it's that complicated because, when we were in Europe, especially Italy, they were saying cello recipe.
Well, you know the story, Tiger. We were in Florence at a wine tasting, and not being a drinker of wine or much of anything else, I'm like, okay, well, I'll go. And then just before we left, John said, you got to try this. I'm like, what is it? He goes, it's limoncello. I'm like, no, just try it. Well, of course, it was the creamy kind.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then they had pistachio, and they had orange. And
So is limoncello with pistachio in it?
well, it's the flavor.
Okay.
So just like you would
Enhance the flavor.
Enhance
Flavor
the
of
flavor.
coffee or something.
right,
Yeah,
exactly, but so good. But then there's also the limoncello that's not creamy. That doesn't have the dairy product. They put dairy in it, right, John?
I have no idea.
For the cream, but you can't. I only found one place in San Diego that actually offers that. The rest are just straight. There's no cream in it, but still very good. I love it. To me, it tastes like lemonade. But anyway, so somebody wants to grow citrus. Let's talk
Yes.
about the feeding and the care of citrus.
Well, the feeding for citrus is regular because, they're a production tree. So you need to fertilize them because they're constantly wicking nutrients out of the soil around them.
What was Lance saying? A pound of nitrogen per year
plant.
per tree.
Yeah, per plant, which is a
three
lot.
times a year, almost quarterly, but you don't do it the fourth time.
Right,
3 times.
because you don't want to fertilize in the wintertime because you don't want to be pushing out a lot of new growth because that's the most susceptible part of the plant during a frost or during a cold spell.
And something about picking them just before they flower. He mentioned something about that. Right?
About harvesting the fruit before the next flower cycle comes on. So that way, this wasn't a big deal, but if you leave the fruit on, the next fruit crop could be a little bit different flavor, could have a little bit less quality of
because the tree's going to put the energy into the flowers?
Well, it's putting energy into old fruit when you want to put energy into the new fruit. So, picking the fruit is a really important thing. Picking the fruit is a really important thing for a lot of reasons. Number one, you want it to continue to produce well. And when there's old fruit on a tree, it's putting energy into something that it shouldn't be putting energy into. Number two, you talked about dropping fruit. Fruit on the tree, excessive fruit on the tree and dropping fruit attracts rodents. You can have rats, you can have raccoons, all kinds of rodents coming, around there that you don't want either. Also, what I've seen is that when there's a lot of fruit on the tree, it thins the foliage because there's so much energy going into the fruit that can't always support the plant. And you need the foliage to have a good – the foliage is the solar panels, so to speak, of a tree.
Fruit, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and it protects the fruit. But, you need those leaves to have, really good production. And if you have leaf loss – you're going to have poor tree health down the road. You can recuperate it by fertilizing and watering it, but
yeah, the citrus is telling you when it needs to be fed because it'll drop its leaves. And citrus, more than any other tree I can think of, wants to bear fruit. So if there's not enough nutrients in the soil for it to support leaves, it'll drop the leaves first, and it'll keep flowers and fruit.
And it'll tell you something's wrong.
Yeah, so you need... if you see that happening, normally that's the case. I mean, watering can affect that too. And by the way, since I mentioned watering, commercially they usually deep water citrus once every 10 days, 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on where you are. A little more water inland and towards the desert and a little less water towards the coast.
Now, we mentioned this with Lance, and it's a question we've been getting for years about citrus that splits. And we talked about there's several reasons, usually weather-related, or going from hot to cold, cold to hot. But Lance also said it's not really a big deal, and you're probably not going to see all of the fruit splitting. But my question to you is this. If you come across a couple of 2 or 3 that have split, you should pull those right away. You shouldn't leave them on the tree, right?
they're worthless. the
Right.
fruit is worthless. So
Yeah.
you pull it right away. Again, you're putting energy into something that's not going to give you anything in return.
Right.
Again, because it's split, it probably is going to attract more critters.
Sure.
Because they can smell it.
Birds.
They can get inside of it much easier than if it's just a solid fruit on a
Mm-hmm.
tree. So yeah, like you say, just pull it right away. But as we mentioned, splitting fruit is because the fruit grew too quickly. And what that means is that it either got a lot of water too fast, and so it's cracked the skin. You fertilized too heavy, which again, it could have cracked the skin. Or it went from cool to warm too quick, which again would just cause the fruit to grow too quickly. It's outgrowing its skin. And so that's what happens there. So, nothing always that you did, but something that is preventable and something that usually doesn't affect every piece of fruit on the tree.
If you were going to plant citrus, if you only had room for, say, 2 or 3 trees, would you plant something that's really common? Like, would you do an orange? Or would you plant maybe an unusual citrus? Something you couldn't buy in a supermarket.
Well, that's, at the end of the day, you kind of compare what you use and what you want. And, when you can buy a lime for, 50 cents at the supermarket any given weekend, plant that. Or ever, or, because you can a lemon lemons produce a lot of lemons. You don't always need it or want it, but you have a ton of them. But if you plant a kind of unique tasting mandarin with really good flavor, you're going to probably use that a lot more than
You're right about the lemons. I'll come to work on any given day. There'll be like 100 lemons in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Please take one, because they produce more than you can possibly eat.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can go too far, though. Like if you plant a Buddha's hand citron,
you get one fruit per tree.
But what are you going to do with that? What do you do with Buddha's hand
you're a
citron?
chef, maybe, right?
Well, what do you compare it to as far as the taste? I mean,
I don't even know if they eat them, do they?
They just use it for zest.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they just use it for the zest. So the
or
skin,
perfume. You can put a fruit on your mantle or something, cut it open, and can provide scent.
But they don't produce a lot. Also,
right. Some citrus are grown just as ornamentals. Like Kinoto orange. Those are kind of ornamentals, or the sour orange that they grow in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I need to fertilize my citrus today. I learned that from talking to Lance.
Yeah.
This would be a good time to do that.
Do you have plenty of leaves on it?
Yep.
It's not dropping leaves.
Not at all. And there's none yellow. They're all green.
Flowers. It should be flowering.
It's just starting. We got a good crop last year. It took about a year and a half, and then last year.
Do you need a bigger container?
Boy, I don't know.
It's still in a 5-gallon, right?
No.
Oh, no. You did a 15.
Oh, yeah. It's in a 15.
Well, that's a good point, is that you can grow semi-dwarf citrus in containers, but I would use a general rule of one of those half whiskey barrels, about the size. It needs to be in something that size, probably for the life of the tree.
Well, when we picked them and ate them, they were like better than any of the cuties, anything that we buy at the store. They were very, very good, very sweet. So I felt that was a good accomplishment.
Yeah.
We should probably briefly mention location for growing citrus.
Yeah.
There's some.
Yeah, it's going to vary big time.
Some citrus needs heat,
Right.
and it's not going to do well on the coast. For instance, grapefruit. Don't even bother growing grapefruit on the coast unless it's Oro Blanco. Oro Blanco will produce on the coast fine, but red grapefruit, pink grapefruit, marsh seedless, they're never going to be good quality unless they're where they get a lot of heat. And then blood oranges, too, require the heat. The only one that Moro is the only one that will color up on the coast.
Right.
But even then, the better qualities are inland.
Yeah, and, the full sun also, because citrus can grow, like Bryan has it on his patio. It's a very shady patio. It's not to downplay Bryan's tree, but it's a scraggly tree. They get thin. They get kind of gangly.
Now, it'll look good this time of the year because we're getting into summer.
Right.
And it's going to get a lot more sunlight. So
Yeah.
if I can just get it through the winter, which I've been able to do,
Right.
that's an accomplishment. And now it looks good. and it's going to get a lot more sun. So
And-
you're right.
And so they'll grow in shade, but they won't do great in shade.
Exactly.
And so the
They'll
more
just kind of hang
sun-
out. They'll be there.
The more sunlight that you can give it, the better for the citrus as well. Then you'll get really good production. You'll get a good sized tree. So sun is important. As much sun as you can. I don't know. I mean, like you say, they grow Arizona in the desert. Like, I don't know if there's an area that is
Gets
too much sun
I
for
don't
a citrus.
think so.
Yeah.
The you just briefly mentioned finger limes. That's like the hottest new thing in citrus, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Can you even get enough plants in
No.
your nursery?
What
No.
do they look like?
So it's a elongated green. They call it
Pod.
lime.
Yeah, it's like a pod almost.
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
huge pod.
A pod, exactly. But they also call it a caviar lime because when you open it,
There's
what would
little
you call
beads
them?
like
beads, yeah,
beads like tapioca,
Really?
and they just pop out open, and then you take those beads and you can sprinkle them in a salad.
Yeah. No, you can put them on anything. I mean, even like a dessert. Like, people will use them as just a citrus enhancing flavorful bead in a lot of meals. And
those little vesicles, are full of juice, and you bite into one and it just pops like boba, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, like you're saying, like you can't get enough of them. That would be a great tree to have in your yard if you wanted one.
But you can't buy those in the supermarket.
You can't. But yeah. So
Getting back to what unusual thing would you grow?
Right.
If you had to, would you grow a grapefruit tree?
No.
Yeah. See,
I would grow Oro Blanco though
Oro
because
Blanco,
they're sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Even well-grown grapefruit, requires some type of sweetener or
some sugar on
sugar or
top.
some-
sugar.
Yeah.
but you don't need that at all with an Oro Blanco. You could just eat it fresh.
Oh, I'd love to taste one.
Yeah.
I think I would like the taste of grapefruit if it was sweeter.
Yeah, I do like similar to that is a pomelo or pomelo, and they're about double the size of a grapefruit. But you have to peel the skin off each individual segment in order to eat it. You can't just bite into it.
You bring up a point that kind of brought me to attention for people that are interested in citrus, because John had mentioned, like, if you can plant one tree, what would you do?
Right.
If you're interested in citrus, visit farmers markets starting or now, because there's going to be a lot of varieties that are coming into ripening, and that's the only place you're going to find them. In grocery stores, you're going to find Washington navel oranges,
find all the
Valencias.
basics.
You're going to find the basics, right?
Same starting lineup as we say.
But if you go to a farmer's market local to your region, you're going to start to see those different varieties of tree, because I would love to say that most garden centers are a great source of these fruit, but we are also restricted to what we can get.
Sure.
And so it's even a challenge for even an independent garden center to get a good selection of unique citrus. But I can guarantee wherever your region is that there's a lot of rare fruit growers, or there's a rare fruit nursery. You would contact them. They're going to be the growers that have those unique onesie twosies of varieties of trees, because they spend time. They might graft it themselves. They might be growing it themselves in their own production facility. They don't rely on commercial people to dictate what they're growing. They just grow what they want, and that's the cool thing about the rare fruit growers. So if you're in an area and you're looking for citrus, you can't find it, just search rare fruit grower in your region, and you should find one or two that hopefully can point you in the right direction, because it is a challenge to get some of these varieties.
It was always hard for me to find Miowa kumquats. I don't really care for kumquats, the Nagami, and because they're too sour or bitter to me. But Miowa is sweet, and instead of being elongated, it's round. It looks like a little round orange. But when you bite into that, it's a really sweet, pleasant flavor, but really hard to find.
Yeah. And so, it is a challenge to find these trees, but you can't look at your normal sources for it, because commercially growers are going to produce what sells, and those aren't always the ones that are the top
Would Dave
sellers.
Wilson Nursery be a good source if somebody wanted to?
Not for citrus.
Not for
They're for
citrus.
stone fruits,
Okay.
but not for citrus. It's tough. I mean, I would love to list nurseries that are great, but they're, the biggest growers, Laverne, Durlings, 4 wins, 4 seasons,
Four wins.
4 wins. They are very good in their selection, as far as what they grow. So it's tough.
What about insects on citrus? What kind of
Mealybugs?
What are you dealing with
scale, which then mealybug and
citrus
scale.
leaf miner?
Citrus leaf miner isn't a problem though. Like that, they just tunnel through the leaves. The leaf looks defoliated, but at the end of the day, there's really nothing bad that happens to the tree.
Peach leaf curl?
No peach leaf curl on citrus, but but with the mealybug and the scale goes along with the mildew problem, or not mildew, the sooty mold
yeah.
problem. And people are thinking like, oh, well, if I solve this, it'll solve this. No, you need to start with the bug problem.
Right.
We talk about the systemic. There's systemics from BioAdvance for citrus, which is an easy way to treat.
And people think that those, if you use a systemic, it's going to poison the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
But we've mentioned this before, the molecule of the chemical will not go from the peduncle into the fruit. It doesn't cross there. So you don't have to worry about poisoning the fruit. But even then, there's restrictions on how much to use and how soon before harvest you can use it.
And, if you don't want to go that way at all, there's the sprays. You can use neem oils, pyrethrins. There's all kinds of topical sprays that you can use to combat these problems, but you have to use them regularly.
Spinosad.
Yeah. You have to use them regularly. And then, again, even with these organic sprays, they still tell you wash off the fruit before you eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to do it. I think we
Wow.
gave you some great information there, about 23 minutes worth of citrus talk.
If you can't grow citrus after that, I don't know what to tell you.
You were worried about how this podcast would turn out, and I told you it was going to be a lemon.
And we're going to leave you with that, with John's last little comment. Hey, thank you so much for tuning into our podcast. Hopefully you're a regular viewer and listener of our radio show. Garden America, heard every Saturday morning. We kick things off 6 minutes after 8 o'clock on the West Coast, 11 to 6 Eastern time zone. Thank you so much. Again, I hope you get our newsletter. The link to the podcast are in that newsletter. And, of course, some of you have already downloaded the iHeart Media app. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. For Tiger Palafox, John Bagnasco, I'm Bryan Main. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of yet another Garden America podcast. Take care.